And hold on, people are running in our direction, as you can imagine. Yes, it was very intense there for a while. Again, as soon as that happened, the people all dispersed, and they seemed to go up the street towards Sunset, and then that is it. Unfortunately, things have calmed down a bit right now, but again, police are still here throughout the area. They're circling around, keeping a close watch on the businesses just in case. Reporting live from Beverly Hills, I'm Carlos Granda, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Carlos, thank you, and thank you for staying on duty here, given what you just went through. Thank you. Let's get to Eyewitness News reporter Leanne Suter. She's live in the Fairfax district, which has been the epicenter of so much of what we've been seeing tonight. Leanne.
Mark, so much damage throughout the Fairfax district. What began as you heard Carlos say, as a peaceful protest at Pan Pacific Park, it quickly spread around the Grove, around the Farmers Market, and then up here in the Fairfax district. And this is where we saw so much of that damage. This is where we also saw a lot of the trouble from all of those groups that started to gather. And taking a look at this video, this is what we saw repeatedly today. Many of those protesters throwing M80s, fireworks into the crowds, one going off in the middle of the intersection right by us. We saw one earlier this afternoon actually land on a police officer's shoulder as they were pushing the crowd back. They certainly have been facing a lot today. We've seen rocks and bottles thrown, lots of water bottles thrown at the officers. Here in the Fairfax district, though, this is the heart of where we've seen so much damage. I want to show you a couple of things here. Over here, if you take a look, this is Tony and Guy Salons. This is, you can see it's completely flooded inside. The windows shattered, the alarm going off inside. All of the sprinklers have been going off, so the entire business has been flooded inside. This coming just when they got official clearance to actually open their doors. That certainly is not going to be happening anytime soon due to the damage. Outside here, you can see, this is some of the stuff we found. There's clothes strewn all over the street here. You can see them still on the hangers. These are some of the things that many of these looters were grabbing. Look at this pile of sweatpants and sweatshirts here, grabbing from the stores here and just bringing out anything they could, anything they can get their hands on. In the middle of the street, this is one of the other things officers face. Many of the protesters setting fires in the middle of the street as the officers were moving through here. Certainly a very dynamic, very dangerous situation today. But for those who turned out, they said it was something they had to do. They said that it really was, they said it's been a long time coming, and they said that they had to make their voices heard.
We all want to be treated like people. That's it. Police brutality is out of control. When a black person gets abused by the police, it's like, okay, whatever, we have to riot. The damage tonight is necessary. You know why? Because this is how we feel every day walking down the street. We don't get to see the beautiful buildings that everybody else gets to see. We get to feel like we don't belong there. We get to feel like trash. We get to feel like garbage. We get to feel like we can't come here. But we came here today because we want to be a part of it. And if they don't want us to be a part of it, we want you to see what our reality is like. This is what we feel like when we walk down the streets.
Yeah, very impassioned play for why they turned out. Now, here in the Fairfax district, things have calmed down for now. A lot of the crowds have dispersed. We do not see many people. The LAPD, the officers that have been out here all day, getting a little bit of a break, but we know there are still a lot of problem spots across the city. But right here in this area, things calm for now. Certainly everyone hoping it's going to stay that way tonight. Live in the Fairfax district, Leanne Suter, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Leanne, thank you. And as we take a look at the damage across Los Angeles, a local expert on extremism says he believes these protests are driven by fringe groups.
Eyewitness News reporter Veronica Miracle talked to a local expert about the problem and joins us live now from downtown Los Angeles. Veronica?
Well, Mark and Ellen, we've just been sitting here listening to a soundtrack of helicopters as well as police cars just going code 3 all evening, hearing fireworks being shot off. It's been very troubling just listening to all of this. And what Carlos and Leanne talked about earlier, this did start as a peaceful protest organized by a student, no less. And it has evolved into chaos here in Los Angeles and across the country. And an expert I spoke with says he believes that there are bad actors inciting violence.
As protesters mourn the death of George Floyd, hate experts say extremist groups could be inciting violence across the country. Brian Levin is the director at the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at CSU San Bernardino.
We've been getting reports that there are people who are trying to exploit these protests from both the far right and the hard left.
Floyd was believed to have used a counterfeit $20 bill and was being arrested for fraud. A Minneapolis police officer is then accused of kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes and killing him. Protests in every major U.S. city devolved into chaos and violence Saturday night.
We have a perfect storm here. We have economic distress. We have people who are under terrible psychological distress. We have a catalytic violent event with the horrendous killing that we saw of Mr. Floyd in Minnesota. And on top of that, we have a very divisive election season.
The arrest of the Minneapolis police officer at the center of George Floyd's death, he believes, could help bring these protests to a close more quickly. But he says there are violent fringe groups who could be taking advantage of the civil unrest.
Research shows that we are not only the most splintered that we've been in decades, but we're more entrenched in that polarization.
And Mark and Ellen, the most troubling part is that Levin tells me he believes even if this calms down now, the closer we get to the election, the more that these fringe groups will start to incite more violence again. And of course, the civil unrest may just get worse. Reporting live, Veronica Miracle, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Veronica, thank you very much. Right now we're going to check in with Chris Christie. He is over, I believe, downtown. Chris?
We moved over to the Grove here in the Fairfax district, Ellen. You can see LAPD has now made their way over here after reports of another round of looters storming the Grove. There was a report of upwards of 20 looters in here, and it looks like they have regained order here. There's private security and law enforcement now taking up position around the Grove, trying to take a protective posture. This, again, is where a fire was set earlier today. You can see cleanup crews already out here beginning to pick up the pieces after a really destructive day here at the Grove. Obviously, the mall has been closed all day, but that Nordstrom's really took a beating and was ransacked earlier in the afternoon. Also, a fire was set to that LAPD kiosk right in front that you see right there. Fortunately, they were able to put that fire out pretty quickly. They create quite a plume of smoke here in the midst of all of the chaos here in this general area. It's unclear exactly how many businesses have been affected, but fair to say a good bulk of them. Look at that, the Mac store completely shattered. I saw a Ray-Ban store with the front window completely shattered as well. This cleanup is going to take quite some time. Reporting live here, 7 HD, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Chris, and it takes place at a time when after 2 months of lockdown, that retail businesses were able to open with customers inside. For a while, for about a week or so, they were allowed to be open, but only with people picking up curbside. They were finally allowed, as of late this week, to allow customers inside their stores, and then for this to happen and basically set them back weeks or days or weeks from that sort of grand reopening and the jobs that would involve. It's hard to see and it's hard to deal with, but it is just another footnote to what we're seeing here. I mean, Mayor Garcetti said earlier this could have been a great reopening this weekend, and it wasn't.
For me, it's one of the most gut-wrenching parts of this story, and you can even hear it in Mayor Garcetti's voice as he delivered that statement earlier today. But when you think of the businesses and the emotional impact of this during this time, during a state of emergency that we were already in, as this city and our state was trying to pick up the pieces and trying to resume some semblance of normalcy, as not normal as it was going to be in any event, to have to come back to your business, especially the mom and pops. You know, a lot of these stores, they're big chains. They are well financed, and they will repair. They are insured, and they will be okay. It's just going to take some time before they can reopen the Grove with a destination, not only a great tourist destination, but a destination that so many locals in this neighborhood in our city love to visit. This is an iconic mall and one of the nice outdoor malls in our area. In a time where we need outdoor
that is the center
places
mall
to go and breathe the fresh air, as opposed to the enclosed spaces where it's
Mall.
a little more confined. And you know, you would hope that a mall like the Grove would be one of the first malls in the area where we could really get outside, walk around in some shops, and enjoy the fresh air. Unfortunately, that is not going to be.
Yeah, you said it right. It was the mom and pop stores, that added insult to injury, that they were already hurting financially, and now they go back to their shops and stores and find them vandalized. And, it's just a tough situation for these smaller businesses.
Not to mention the restaurants, too, that were going to open as of this weekend for in-store or in-restaurant dining. That was cleared. And so that could have been going on. And, well, it's a little late now, but earlier this evening, those restaurants would have had people in them having dinner, having lunch earlier in the day. But now that's not going to happen, at least for the time being, until this situation has calmed down.
And we've been concentrating.
Incredible to see these cleanup crews already out here this evening. Part of me is a little bit in awe of these cleanup crews who have showed up this evening to try and get the process started of cleaning up, despite just what a terrible day it's been. But it's a little bit inspiring.
It's going to be a long time for that cleanup to happen, especially in the Fairfax district. Shop after shop just vandalized and glass broken and shattered everywhere. And we've been concentrating, of course, on our own city, but it's happening everywhere.
It is indeed. LA, not the only city that's witnessing this escalating unrest in the streets.
In Chicago, protesters clashed with police, burning at least one flag and marching toward the Trump International Hotel and Tower. And just a day after a mob vandalized Atlanta's CNN Center, protesters there took to the streets again as that city deploys over 1,500 National Guard troops to curb that violence.
And of course in Minneapolis, that's the epicenter of the protests, more buildings erupting in flames there. Police moved in to arrest protesters and keep order. It has been a very difficult day across the country.
See demonstrations, and Air 7 HD has been there for all of them, and hopefully we can cue up some of that. All right, we're going to stick with Chris Christie and Air 7. That's over the Grove right now, and more signs of looting that have occurred. It was happening earlier there. We thought it was in the clear, but apparently there's been some more incidents of looting there.
Yeah, let's take a look. Let's kind of survey it if you can from your vantage point and kind of see where the places are that were damaged in the Grove, if you can, if it's possible.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what we're doing. You can see some of the managers around here showing up to start assessing the damage, turning on the lights, literally, to see what's left here and what calls they need to make, and get the insurance companies on the line to start picking up the pieces here and getting that process started. It's going to be a while before the Grove reopens. The one thing we can say today is that there has been no loss of life in our city in the midst of all of this chaos that we know of. Of course, we have we have several law enforcement officers who have been injured, according to Chief Michael Moore. And of course, we'll be waiting for some more specifics in terms of those hospitalizations and injuries in the midst of trying to protect our city. But this is all material stuff that we're looking at here. It's heartbreaking, but it's just material stuff that will be fixed, it will be repaired, and the city will absolutely move on from this eventually. But it's going to take time, and I really do think it's going to take it's going to cost an emotional toll that we can't really wrap our head around yet.
Question is, how do we move on? Because this, again, had a precipitating moment. There were things that have been happening and have been happening historically in this country and have happened in particular at kind of an alarming clip over the last few weeks or so, beginning in a way, if you want to look at the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia, where he was attacked and killed, trailed by some people in this neighborhood in their pickup trucks, and then shot down in the street, and it was caught on video. The video wasn't released, it wasn't made public, but the police had it, investigators had it, no charges were filed, no one was arrested for 2 months. Then when the video was made public, when the public saw the video, that's when the action started. The arrests of the two men didn't happen after the video didn't happen because the police had seen the video. They happened because the public had seen the video. That's in that case in particular. Ahmaud Arbery killed by 2 civilians. And then you look at Breonna Taylor in Louisville, Kentucky, who was in her apartment and shot to death by police. She wasn't even outside. She was shot to death. And you have the situation in Central Park where Kristen Cooper was up bird watching in an area where dogs were supposed to be kept on a leash. She encountered a woman who had her dog off the leash. Dogs scare off the birds, hence the copious signage in the area telling people to keep their dogs on a leash. He reminded her of that. She said, I'm going to call police and tell them, falsely, that an African-American man is threatening my life. She basically decided she was going to put his life in danger, because if they showed up, they might have killed him. And then, of course, you have George Floyd. And all of these things happening in rapid succession and varying degrees of response from the system. And the people's frustrations that are already there, because these are 4 of so many cases that have happened over the years.
And very understandable frustration, anger, sadness, as we take a look at these people that are boarding up some windows that have been looted earlier. Absolutely right. You know, very understandable protests that are happening all over the country. And here at home, Sheriff Villanueva was gathering together a large group of community and religious leaders from across the LA County to hopefully send a powerful message on the chaos that's been unfolding across LA right now.
Make a mark, make a difference, but do so in a way that we walk away the next day, our community is intact, it's not trashed.
We're going to help to make justice happen. This is just one of the first steps, but we all must help to make justice run down in water and help righteousness to flow like a mighty stream.
Violence is not the solution. Coming across the aisle of our separation and the paradoxes that create the problems that fuel these types of outbursts, that is the remedy that we have to find that sustains peace.
I want to say we are all with you. African Americans, Caucasian American, any minority here, we are all here to support you. But this is not the right way what we have seen for the last 3 days. Burning businesses, harming others, is not going to help anybody. As all these speakers have said very correctly, let's get together. Let's find a proper solution.
Unfortunately, people they want to speak to, these spiritual leaders, are not the ones listening. They're out on the streets protesting. So, but nevertheless, they tried. LA County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas was pleading for protesters also for peace and with a nation that's deep in pain. And he says the relationship between protesters and police is not simple. Courtesy to be peaceful, and police should also show restraint.
They do have an obligation to protect the well-being of the citizenry of this city. And I would hope that they can do that with minimal discord, minimal degree of harm to individuals, not the least of which would be to themselves. Protesters have an obligation to be guided by the Constitution and the First Amendment, but that speaks largely to peaceful protest and organizing. There should be law enforcement reform. Many of us have stood for it over many, many years, but it has to happen in the context of constructive engagement, and if that happens, we can make progress. But the destruction of property and a range of other things, although understandable from the point of view of pain and anger, is not acceptable if in fact we're going to have a community that celebrates progress in the appropriate manner.
LA County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas. We are looking live now from Air 7 HD over the area near Melrose Avenue, where much of the looting has been focused this evening. Let's get an update from Chris Christie. Chris?
Hey there, Mark. Actually, we've made our way in the other direction, much closer to the 10 freeway, and that's notable because we're actually, to be specific, right along La Cienega Boulevard at 18th Street. So we're on the opposite end of town, much closer to Culver City, but still in LA City, and you can see that this is a Smart & Final that has been freshly looted, as well as a GMC store next door, and some trash left behind there, obviously. Law enforcement just apparently, actually, it looks like this is happening now. There's still looters There's still looters down there.
All right, well, Chris, thank
There
you.
are still looters
Yeah.
down there. Yeah, this is a shopping center. I can't tell what the other businesses there. Let me see. It looks like a the WSS shoe store, and then you got the Smart Final there. Another one around the corner. I can't tell exactly what's been looted and what hasn't been. But obviously, lots of damage here as well. But what's notable about this shot right here? This is the furthest south in West LA that we have seen any signs of looting. It appears it's ongoing right now.
And are you seeing any law enforcement there, Chris?
No sign of law enforcement yet, although I do believe that call has gone out. They are not here yet.
Okay, again, it's too big an area. Police can't be everywhere at once, and so if what we saw downtown which were these roving groups of people in cars caravanning from one place to the next, that's what you're going to have. They're going to go here, they're going to leave and go somewhere else. They're going to go where the police aren't, and they're going to loot. And that may be what happened here. This again is a Smart and Final and some other stores here. What is the exact location again, Chris?
18th Street and La Cienega, just a couple of blocks north of the Tennessee.
GNC, a food store, it's like a site of Smart and Final. Not a lot of looters, but you see them there. Windows are broken into and a lot of debris.
Yeah, and we don't know at this point. There could be an employee there. We don't know, but there are some folks down there. Looters typically seem to run, so I'm not sure they're from the body language of the people that I'm seeing down there, whether they are in fact still looting or whether they are part of that. But
it might be the cleanup crew.
Yeah, they could be cleanup crew, folks. We don't know yet, but you can see there's obvious evidence that looting appears to have taken place there, and no police presence as of right now. I always feel kind of weird saying that because it's almost like telling people, hey, let go. So,
Dollar Tree across Smart and Final. The police are just driving right by here, actually. That's a Ross. The CVS has been boarded up. For some reason, the CVS pharmacies have been a real target today. Go up there, looks like that the Essentials is okay. Yeah, I can't tell that's Ross. Next one is Dollar Tree, I believe. And again, difficult to tell, but it doesn't look like
bad,
it's been
no.
penetrated. No, it looks okay. So that's Smart and Final, which is another indication. I mean, that people are, unemployed, and some of them are desperate for food. We've seen the food lines. And so
that may be part of what happened. I mean, that's.
Yeah, we did see another CVS being looted, and that makes sense. They probably want to hit the pharmacy because we saw a lot of people going in and out of that CVS earlier today in the Fairfax district.
Right.
But that man, this is kind of wandering around there. He certainly doesn't seem like the body language of someone who's looting, so maybe he is.
Well, yeah, for one thing, he's not carrying anything. So, that's, somebody's just out walking. So we'll see. We'll take a look at this and we'll kind of see what we're looking at here. But something has happened out there. Clearly, there's some damage. There's some debris strewn about in front of this Smart Final store. This is in the city of Los Angeles. It's within the jurisdiction of the LAPD, just north of the 10 freeway. And again, if looting has happened here, as Chris mentioned, it would be the farthest south that we have seen the damage go thus far.
By far the most concentrated looting and the most looting has been in the Fairfax district, but Suda was reporting all afternoon. We saw store after store vandalized, and we actually saw them just taking turns going into the store, coming out with their goods and running down the street, and we saw it over and over again.
it occurs to me. You guys still there?
Yeah.
No, sorry, it occurs to me that under the circumstances that we've been facing over the last several weeks, months, a lot of these businesses have not reopened, obviously. This reminds me of covering hurricanes back east, where daylight tomorrow morning may reveal much more damage than we are really getting a taste for. We've got a lot of folks driving around targeting easy targets, and the calls are starting to come in. Some of them are a little bit delayed, but I don't think we can really assess the full scope of the damage and the looting until the sun comes up tomorrow, we may be finding a lot more situations just like the shot.
Right, yes, we're going to check with just a little bit, but we do have some breaking news from Sam. I think it's a video just about some violent protests that happened in San Antonio. Hit by rocks and bodies and items that were coming from. This is at Bristol's cabin, and also news reporting that several stores in that area and officers deployed tear gas to disperse the crowd. At this point, at least one officer was injured in this incident, as several people were arrested. It's been a lot of unrest there in Santa Ana as well.
You know what's interesting too? The fireworks. The fireworks are being ubiquitous. Like in Southern California and other places, other cities around the country, the same sort of thing. So it's like the starburst when it goes off. That's it right there. We've seen that in Minneapolis. We've seen that in Atlanta. We've seen that here. And I'm wondering why it is that seems to be the thing that's being employed and whose idea this is and how it's getting done and where they get there. Because so much, in just about every jurisdiction, well, I know anything that flies, as we know, anything that flies and explodes is illegal in the whole state of California. You can't buy that anywhere in California. So then that kind of it kind of brings up the question, where are they getting it? They have to be getting it from the United States, at the very least, possibly.
And check out that stampede. The opposite photographer got caught up in that, but a lot of activity going down there in Santa Ana as well. I'm hearing reports in San Diego, a lot of people happening there as well.
Yes, this is happening in cities all around the state and all around the country.
Salt Lake City.
Right, Seattle. Amy Powell is in where is it?
Downtown.
Downtown, all right.
Things are quieter, right, Amy? Well, at the moment they are, but I'm not joking when I say every few minutes. In fact, right now we hear the sound of sirens, and then we'll see police vehicles streaming past us, racing down the streets, responding to calls about acts of violence and vandalism and trying to keep these demonstrators from congregating in the streets and causing trouble. A lot of people clearly not paying attention to curfew out here, causing problems, and police doing their best to try to shut everything down. Now just take a look at what we saw earlier. We saw LAPD officers armed with non-lethal weapons moving in at times, blocking streets and trying to disperse individuals and groups of people who've been roaming the streets of downtown Los Angeles. And tension has been rising as some of those vandals again damage buildings, break into businesses, and loot those businesses. We've seen some suspects surrounded and taken into custody. Officers have also been blocking the streets, trying to control the movements of demonstrators. This, of course, all started with some peaceful protests earlier in the day over the death of George Floyd, but then deteriorating into chaos in several parts of the Los Angeles area. Now, Mayor Eric Garcetti spoke to Eyewitness News after seeing a massive crowd of protesters clashing with officers in the Fairfax district. Several police vehicles set on fire during that disturbance. The mayor initially issued a curfew for the downtown area and then expanded it citywide.
Clear vandalism, and everybody's in danger. The protesters, our police officers and police officers who are on the front line, and for the interest of public safety, people need to stay at home. People need to remain at home during this curfew so that we can know that folks that are out during this curfew are to cause trouble. And it's been clear that at a very righteous moment, when people who rightfully so have not only looked at the act of insidious racism that took George Floyd's life, but the continuing structural racism that infects this country, that this is changing the conversation from the justice that is deserved to suddenly the destruction of a city that we love. There's clearly people who are out to destroy not only parts of our city, but to destroy any hope of a coalition that would bring us together to get justice for George Floyd.
And again, this curfew is in place until 5:30 tomorrow morning. At times tonight, it is a little bit quieter than it was early this evening, but again, right now, even I can hear the distant sound of sirens, and again, we know we'll hear them close by because that's just how it has been all evening here in downtown Los Angeles. And again, police are expecting this to be a very long night. Reporting live in downtown Los Angeles, Amy Powell, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Long night, indeed. Amy Powell. There it goes. Thank you. Well, it's been a long day of demonstrations, and Air 7 HD has been there for them all. At noon, big crowds gathering.
Noon. Big crowds gather peacefully at Pan Pacific Park. Thousands march through the streets protesting police brutality.
We see some tagging going on right there. We've seen a lot of that. Spray can, vandalism, if you will.
Police officers move in, trying to get a handle on the situation.
The LAPD is trying to hold a line here,
and it looks like they're surrounded on both sides.
Protesters graffiti a row of patrol cars, bashing windows, busting doors, even setting them ablaze.
Wow, this is horrific. This is exactly what we did not want to see.
More cars torched, windows smashed, an LAPD kiosk burns, and boxes litter the street as looters hit the Grove.
Random destruction.
Looting escalates. Swarm of protesters pushing gates on Melrose, taking things large and small.
There goes the ATM. There goes the ATM and the pickup truck.
8 p.m. The curfew takes effect, and looters spread. One person even stealing an entire rack from Target. Blocks away, flames shoot from clothing stores.
That roof is caving in, and now you see this building is really going up.
LAPD mobilizing thousands of officers moving in for a long night across Los Angeles. Veronica Miracle, ABC7 Eyewitness News.
Like we said, it's been a very long day, and Chris Christie's been above it all day long and joins us now. And Chris, where are you now?
Hey there, Ellen. So this is interesting. The LAPD air support has spotted a suspicious vehicle. They've got the light on him, and they're keeping an eye on him. The reason it's interesting is we're a block north of Melrose, and the order has just been put out to begin pulling people over. Anybody on Melrose at this point is being considered up to no good, essentially, and violation of the curfew. And so they're going to start arresting people. They're going to start pulling people over on Melrose. Anybody left on the road. We're talking about motorists, pulling them over and start making arrests. Anybody in cars at this point is basically facing an arrest. So that's what we're looking at here. We're again just block north where they've spotted some suspicious vehicles, and just a couple of blocks from where the LA City Fire Department is still trying to put out those fires earlier. One over on Spalding and another one just down the block there. Again, those fires are still raging, and they are still trying to get those out. But for some reason or another, you can see, well, we know the reason, but you can see there are way too many cars on Melrose where there just should be no car traffic right now.
Well, that's an excellent point. We talked about this earlier. The state of emergency and the curfew gives police probable cause to start pulling people over who ordinarily they might not have probable cause to do so. By being out, when a curfew is declared, you're already in a violation, and that allows them then to pull you over and find out what you're doing. It is a tool that they're going to use tonight to try to quell this, to try to put this thing down and maybe get some peace in this city that has been racked by this spasm of violence and looting.
Also a good sign that they can afford to use those resources for that, to pull people over, because it means that there's a little bit of less unrest that's happening, and they can take some of those officers to do that patrolling on the street. So that it's actually really a good sign.
Yeah, the curfew is helping, it would appear, because it does seem as though there's looting that has been happening. We don't know if it's still happening to the degree that it was earlier in the evening. Chris Christie getting that overview at 783, now watching police officers pulling cars over in the Melrose area. Because we did get that report, we got several reports, especially from Amy's town, that cars were caravan going from place to place and stopping and looting.
So, if you're, yeah, I'm sorry. So we are still following this LAPD air support helicopter. He is monitoring some vehicles traveling along Waring here, and they're preparing to start pulling people over, as I mentioned. So here we go. So we'll check this out and see how this plays out here, because I think we're going to start seeing more of this for anybody else who remains on the road this evening, at least in this neighborhood. So they are going to approach this Jeep and begin making arrests. There are several vehicles that are in the process of being pulled over right now as we speak. So we're going to keep an eye on this one. Let's go ahead and zoom in here and see how LAPD exercises this new tactic, which is something that we have not seen yet this evening. They're giving the go-ahead to start pulling people over I'm not even going to say randomly, anybody suspiciously in this neighborhood who should not be on the road at all. Nobody should be on the road right now. But obviously this neighborhood is essentially, in ideal conditions would be under lockdown. There's no personnel to enforce that, but this is the best they can do. Where they see suspicious vehicles, they are facing arrest, and it looks like they have now parked in front of that Jeep. They boxed in 3 vehicles, not only the Jeep, but the 2 cars behind them. All 3 vehicles are now in the process of being ordered out of the vehicle, probably. That's a little bit of a guess on my part, but they are going to approach these drivers at some point and take them to custody. Here comes one person in the car with their hands on their head. That would be the driver, and then eventually anybody else inside the vehicle. I can't see them. They're not drawn down their chassis. They do have their guns drawn. They have these people at that point. And we will watch this play out.
Well, and we're going to watch it with you. And one of the reasons we're going to watch it is we're going to watch what the police do and how they do it.
Yes.
Because this is not just about stopping crime, this is about making sure people's civil liberties are protected. Something that has been told to us earlier by some of these protesters, talking about those people she called angels, who are going around getting people rights and getting them out. So there is somewhere the possibility of just getting that also. This could be perfectly innocent. And so that's something that enters into the thinking here as well. So we got to see how this all plays out. Exactly.
Yeah, these 3, we were listening to it for a little bit. These 3 in particular were definitely deemed suspicious. I don't know what exactly made them suspicious, but this is a group of vehicles, several groups that they had their eye on for the last several minutes. Not sure where they caught up with them or where they saw them come from. But now you see them going one by one, and a passenger stepping out of the vehicle. Again, as you mentioned, entirely possible that these people may be completely innocent. But anybody outside right now during this curfew is technically in violation. So they are going to start taking people into custody. Especially anybody who's deemed up to no good.
And perhaps some of these drivers that are driving by will take this as a warning that they probably should get home. That starts to return, perhaps that would be one good thing about it. We want to stick with this and also the answer. Right, we're going to check in with Nancy right now. He's been on this story all day long. Yeah.
Ellen, a bit of a turn here in the situation here at Fairfax and we're at Rosewood. And I mentioned this is the side street we saw a short time ago when we saw all of the officers rush into this neighborhood and now know why. The bomb squad has just been called in. You can see K9 going in right now. That's because there were several explosives that had been thrown at the officers as the protesters and the crowd was running through this neighborhood. I'm being told that there is what they described as a cherry bomb, the size of a large orange, you were saying, a grapefruit, that is there in the neighborhood. They know where it is, but they cannot find the fuse. And now they brought in the bomb squad, brought in the dogs to go through the neighborhood to see if they can find the fuse to that explosive that is sitting there in the neighborhood, and then to take care of the situation. They said they found several other smaller explosive type devices back in there. Those have been taken care of, but now they are searching for this one here. Certainly, it gives you a sense of what these officers have faced today and some of the dangers that they faced and some of the things that have been thrown at them. But again, this is right in this residential neighborhood. You can see some of the homes, some of the apartments right there, right along the street here in Rosewood. That is why the bomb squad has been called in. So this is a very fluid situation for them. You can see them searching all throughout the area, looking for anything they can. I guess they're trying to find that fuse is the key, is what I think they're trying to determine how active this orange bomb is, how active this device may be. They said we are safe where we are. We are not in danger here, but this is what they are dealing with right now here at this location. The rest of the area here in the Fairfax district, relatively calm, quiet. You can see some of the officers will pan into the street. A line of officers now coming in. Some of them have been able to get a break. Oh, there I see they're arresting. Can you see across the street, across they've taken into arresting some of the folks that were turning out. We saw some people kind of walking through the area here despite being told by police that there was a curfew, despite being warned that they needed to leave the area or be arrested. You can see a couple of them there are being put under arrest at this point. So they are definitely taking no chances, clearing everyone out. I can see some of the folks that had their cars that were trapped here along Fairfax that had been parked here for whatever reason. They are just now being able to leave the area. So again, things relatively calm here. The biggest concern at this point right here in Fairfax district is the issue going on with this potential explosive device that they are working on here in this neighborhood. Live in the Fairfax district, Leanne Suter, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Well, it's glad we solved that mystery because it was quite a police presence earlier. We didn't know what was happening, so hopefully they'll get to the bottom of that and figure out if there's anything that they should be worried about.
Yeah, it's kind of troubling that the actual bomb squad left and on the far right that are seeking to try for their own ends to cause destabilization and to cause all kinds of chaos. And they've been pretty successful for much of the evening tonight in causing that. And we're going to see how we all deal with it.
And I think we can go back to Chris Christie in our 7HD. Chris, you're over that same scene.
Yeah, this is very interesting. We have a few more details to fill in the blanks here. To reiterate what you're watching here, several vehicles pulled over on Waring Avenue at La Brea Avenue, just a block north of Melrose. And what they are doing is, first of all, they have reason to believe that this is a caravan that's been basically casing the area. Essentially casing the area, driving around together as a group, and they have reason to believe that they have stolen merchandise in these vehicles. And so with that probable cause,
the strategic thinking that's involved here in terms of how they're dealing with this as they get the resources to enable them to do it is striking, and they're doing things that we just didn't see some 28 years ago, the last time the city really erupted. Chris Christie in Air 7 HD has been up over Los Angeles all day as we've been reporting, covering the civil unrest that has broken out in the wake of that protest, and we've seen buildings burn and looted.
And you're looking at some of the footage from earlier today on the right-hand side, a fire that happened to fully engulf this building. Fortunately, it was a vacant building, but nonetheless, it was destroyed. Here you see that nail salon we were talking about. Okay, on that sidewalk is an ATM. And did we lose that? Yeah, well, anyway, it was an ATM. And now we are in the, well, okay, this is moving too fast for me.
The whole day's been moving too fast for us. But that's Melrose too. And but what you're seeing is looting that's been going on in various forms in various locations throughout the city of Los Angeles throughout the evening.
Yeah, you see that person just go right into that window, debris everywhere, broken glass everywhere. It's going to be quite a cleanup, but we've seen these just packs of people go from store to store and then take turns actually, go in the store, walk out with their handful of stuff, and then the next people go in. And they even had people kind of like a bouncer, like, now you can go in and now you can go in. And it was pretty interesting to see that. What was that famous shoe store? The Flight.
What was it? Flight Club.
Yeah, Flight Club.
Flight Club.
Apparently, very expensive tennis shoes, really exclusive, collector's items as tennis shoes go, and that store was ransacked.
Right. So it did seem that the organized groups knew where to go. They knew where to go and what to hit, and they were hitting those places. And so now what's happening is, now that things have calmed down somewhat, the streets are getting more calm, the LAPD is now going after those folks. Although you're seeing live pictures here of another store being looted. Somebody just picked up a big box off the ground. Chris, where are you now?
Yeah, they have found a computer store full of MacBooks and MacBook Pros that are now walking away one by one. They're driving up, they're jumping through the window. We're seeing dozens of computers walk away right before our very eyes. Just to give you an idea, we're at Melrose, right next to Pizzeria Mozza, one of my favorites. And you can see all of this merchandising, very expensive electronics, walking away, folks running. They're pulling up, driving right up, and taking whatever they can get, and really with impunity, it must be said.
Store called Melrose Mac, apparently.
Melrose Mac. The location again, is that on? I assume it's on Melrose.
Melrose and Highland.
Melrose and Highland. Anybody watching this from the varying agencies that would respond to this, that being the LAPD, can respond. This is going to do it for us for right now. We'll be back with more coverage tomorrow on Eyewitness News. Stay safe, everyone.
Have a good night.
Persok. Natawag na pang gao. Natawag na. Nga pamudjot lang.
Oh, grabe. Luting na napuso nila yun.
Uy, libre kawat na.
Hindi mo na-imagine na magpagulo Pilipi ang nalibutan. Wala ka dyan. Dalog. Mamitan, ano mo din si Travis din? Kristus.
Ay, nakastrike na.
Nanay, ako.
Sit down naman na. Ikaw ko na si Bong Castar na.
Hindi na.
Wala na.
Wala na.
Cancel. Cancel. Alright. So that's it for today.
Sabad, dati naka-stream.
In stream.
On the D. Tapos
stop street.